preparations for post-election violence already underway. Implicit in all of this is that we know where the violence is going to come from, right? We know which side of the political aisle is going to resort to looting and burning things down, and because this is what they do. This has become a part of the political culture of the left. That kind of lawlessness, tyranny, terror, destruction, it's not condemned. They really have no problem with it. Only at the very last moment in the general election campaign was Joe Biden willing to even say, you shouldn't break the law, folks. Oh, gee. Brave stuff. But the Texas National Guard is sending 1,000 troops to 5 of the state's biggest cities, according to Fox News here, to handle any outbreaks of violence on Election Day or afterward. The cities include Dallas, Houston, Fort Worth, Austin, and San Antonio. And there's the, quote, possibility that some of the troops might be sent to polling locations in those areas as soon as the weekend, which has prompted Democrats to speculate about voter suppression. Right, sure. The National Guard being deployed is voter suppression now. Now they don't trust the military either. They don't trust the cops. They don't trust the military. The only people in the government that Democrats trust are Dr. Fauci and James Comey, formerly in the government. They're the only people that we should listen to about everything. And if you question them, you're a bad person. There's something very sad about a country with 2 major political parties, and one of them just having no problem with the thuggery within its own ranks. In fact, viewing the people who go out and loot and destroy and commit arson and attack police as the vanguard of an ideological movement that's at the center of the Democrat Party itself. And they don't call this out. They don't condemn it. They pretend that it's not going on, actually. That's really the biggest thing that you see is the intense gaslighting against the American people that they engage in with all of this stuff. That's what's really happening, right? Oh, there were no riots over the summer, really. It was mostly peaceful. Didn't you see the 90% plus protests or something that didn't involve violence? Well, when you have hundreds and hundreds of protests and 10% of them involve real mayhem, destruction, and criminality, that's a lot of those bad things happening. The Democrats, of course, just hope that nobody pays attention to this. They hope that the shock troops of Antifa and the BLM activists and all the stuff that we saw. I mean, remember those women who were shrieking in the faces of D.C. Metro Police and, saying that how dare they stand there and enforce the laws, and just screaming and all this craziness, and these people that go to these colleges, they don't learn anything, and they come out and they all want to be activists. Oh, I want to be an activist. Changing the world in ways that are useful, that's difficult. That's hard to do. It requires diligence, patience, hard work, humility, perseverance. You got to stay on it. It's not easy to do things that are worthwhile. You know what's really easy? Putting up your support for BLM on Instagram. You know what's really easy? Showing up at a march with 1,000 other people who are all just feeling like they're really doing important, great stuff because they're such good people, and they all take photos of themselves and they live stream it. That doesn't make anything better. It doesn't build anything. And what did the Democrats build? What did the grassroots, the activist class of the Democrat Party build over the course of the summer? Nothing. They destroyed. And they didn't even really help the Biden campaign, so you can't even say that this was politically ended up, I think, being politically useful for them. It became a liability. In the early days, it was just mobilization of the Democrat Party base, but then they couldn't really control it. Then they realized that they had a problem on their hands. And now with the riots in Philadelphia last night, again, over a what seems to be entirely justified police shooting, it's a reminder to everybody that the decline in major cities that we're seeing of law and order, the rise of violence and instability, it is going to get worse with Democrats because they have shifted their thinking once again. Through the 70s into the 80s and the 90s, Democrats believed that violence in society was a problem of society, meaning that we were the cause of it, not individuals making wrong decisions for which they should be punished. The reason that there were, violent acts that were going on in such large numbers, particularly in major cities, was because of societal failings. We were creating criminals. Criminals weren't making choices. There's been a bit of a return to that. And it's interesting because it's come at the same time as we have this whole criminal justice reform movement. And I can tell you that there's some libertarian impulses that even I have shared at different points in the recent past where I say, okay, look, nonviolent drug offenses, people shouldn't go to prison for a long time for that. That doesn't seem okay. Well, we start that conversation. And then all of a sudden we get people who are violent, who we're being told should be let out of prison or should have much shorter sentences. Now we're being told that individuals who throw rocks at cops, as long as they're chanting Black Lives Matter, shouldn't spend any real time in jail. That trying to burn down a federal courthouse in Portland shouldn't result in a serious prison sentence. There's been this shift. What started as a good faith discussion about crime and punishment in our society has now become an opening for radicals. Abolish the police, defund the police, abolish the prisons, empty out the prisons. This is something you'll hear from the hardcore activists on the left will make this case to you that we should have, and they'll just pick some number. We should have some massive reduction in the prison population. I always want to ask when this comes up, are you saying that all these people are innocent? Is society going to be better off if people don't get punished for crimes that are serious? Is that going to make people feel, even the nonviolent drug offenses, I always feel like they leave this out. People who are selling fentanyl and heroin, for example, are complicit in an illegal process that's killing tens of thousands of Americans every year. We're going to consider that nonviolent? You're selling fentanyl to people. It could kill them the first time they take it. And you're doing that to make a small profit. That shouldn't be punished pretty severely? Wow. Where are we heading as a country if that's really the direction that we take? No, I mean, one of the big omissions that happened over the summer, I think everybody was aware of this too, at least people that were being honest about what's happening. When I say everybody, this is just the way of speaking. I know that the Democrats obviously all disagree. But there was no real conversation about root causes for individual violence or individual failings. It's always about the collective, right? It's always about what's out there in general. And so no one's really held responsible for what they do, and therefore they can get away with whatever they want. And this then very quickly feeds into the mob mentality. I'm angry about this, so I'm going to break in this store. There's 50 other people. We're all angry. It's not on any one of us individually to make this choice. We're doing this because of the failings of society, you see, and now I'm going to steal a bunch of sneakers. Democrats have a lot of excuses to make for this, and very little sympathy for the communities, the business owners, the employees, the people that are harmed directly by this. They really just don't care. I think we should all remember that too. Nancy Pelosi always talking about how she cares about the little guy. I mean, Nancy Pelosi is the biggest rich lib fraud imaginable. This is somebody who could care less about people that are actually working hard for a living, has no idea what that's like, has no idea as an adult for the last 50 years having to worry about bills or the mortgage or anything. Nah, that's for the poor people. But she wants to tell those poor people that she cares so much about them. And one of the things Democrats will do to tell the poor and the underprivileged that they have so much concern is to, say that maybe the cops are really the problem. Maybe the cops are the bad guys. This has very negative consequences for society, my friends. This makes things worse for all of us. And I hope the Democrats pay a price for this in this election, because otherwise they'll view this as something that they can go back to again. Otherwise, their opinion on all this will be that it was politically a potent tool for them, mobilizing people on the streets. And they've managed to create this completely absurd story about how it's on both sides, right? Trump won't denounce white supremacists or the Proud Boys, as if, well, one, that's not true. And two, who was doing all the destruction in cities all summer? Wasn't Trump voters. It was Biden voters. We all know that. They all hate Trump. In fact, a lot of the anger, a lot of the rage in the streets, I would argue, was a direct consequence of Trump derangement syndrome. So we'll have to see what the referendum looks like in this election on all those activities, whether it even weighs in. But I'll tell you this, I think that the riots and law and order are going to matter a lot more than Hunter Biden's laptop. That I do think. And I wish there was greater focus on it. And last night's mayhem in Philadelphia is certainly an opening to revisit this conversation and force the Democrats to explain, why do they always have sympathy and a soft spot for this kind of abhorrent behavior? Why are they always making it sound like it was mostly peaceful, a heated protest? No, this was a justified police shooting that people decided to take it upon themselves to protest by breaking the law and hurting people, hurting innocent people. That's immoral. There's no way around this. There's no explanation of this that they can come up with that will change that fact. What people did last night in Philadelphia is immoral as well as illegal. By breaking private property and attacking law enforcement officers and committing arson, this cannot be justified, and it actually has to be confronted. And the only political party in the country right now that's willing to do that is the Republicans, as imperfect as they are. And, you know, Donald Trump sometimes can be a blunt instrument on this issue, and I get that. But at least he's fighting for the right team, which is all of us, of every color, of every creed, of every race and ethnic origin, everything else, all of us being able to live peaceably in society and not have to worry about some craziness like this. And not have to worry about what happens when the police no longer feel like they're allowed to do their job. It's not just the looting and the rioting. You have to remember, it's the secondary effects around all of that. Of a community that now feels like, are we next? Of law enforcement officers who have to ask the question, what if I have to use my weapon? Is there going to be a riot? Is the expectation now that I have to be stabbed in the neck first before I can use my gun? Because if that's the case, maybe I don't want to be a cop anymore. Or just the police officer that sees something that he or she knows is not right for their beat, not right in their area. Something's going on, and they say, I don't want to go walk down that dark alley and see what's happening down there because it's just trouble for me. Too bad if something bad's happening to somebody, but I got to get to that pension, and I got a family to feed. That's what's happening in cities across the country, and it is happening because of Democrats, because of people like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, who on law enforcement issues are frauds and cowards. Hey, Team Buck, thank you so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you like this video, please click that little thumbs up button so then it will log as liked. And also, if you want to see more great content from The First, please click subscribe.